You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Welcome everyone to Polycarp's Paradigm. My name is Eric Robinson, and I'm just so happy to be with you all on this new year. It's 2021, and I'm excited to announce to you all a new creative project that I'm launching. You may have heard of it from my last episode with Pat Flynn. I briefly mentioned it, but I'm launching a website called Euchoetry.com. 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 You might be like, what is Euchoetry? Well, Euchoetry comes from two words, Eucharist and poetry, hence Euchoetry. So it was about a year ago, a little over a year ago. It was in November of 2019. I had been spending a couple of times each week, really consistently, actually it was almost every day, in Eucharistic Adoration. And for those who aren't Catholic, Eucharistic Adoration, well, first of all, the Eucharist is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. It's Jesus Christ himself under the appearance of bread and wine. And so sometimes in a Catholic church, though, there will be what's called Eucharistic Adoration, where the Blessed Sacrament, the Eucharist, is exposed in a monstrance. Of course, you can have Eucharistic Adoration where you don't see the Eucharist. Maybe it's just in the tabernacle of the church or whatnot. But my thought was, okay, being in this Eucharistic Adoration where the Eucharist is exposed, I'm in the presence of Jesus Christ. I'm in God's presence. This is amazing. And so the thought struck me, what if I wrote a poem about the Eucharist, about the presence of God, while I'm actually in the presence of God? Okay, I'm going to try that. That sounds awesome. So after I wrote that first poem, it was November 19th, 2019, I thought to myself, wow, what if other people would really want to do that as well? What if other people wanted to write poems in the presence of God? And that thought kept going with me for about a year or so until I finally decided, okay, I'm going to launch a website where not only I can post my poems that I've written, but I can have a platform where other people, you, my dear listeners, can post poems that you hand wrote in the presence of God. And that would be awesome. First of all, it would encourage more and more people to be in Eucharistic Adoration, which transfigures us. When we are in the presence of God, we get transfigured. We get transformed more and more into the likeness of Jesus. That is amazing. Furthermore, what if those who do not have the Eucharist, a lot of my friends and family are still Protestants, and they don't have this gift of the Eucharist because they don't have apostolic succession. So what if they saw the beauty of being in the presence of God in adoration, in the Eucharistic presence of Jesus, and they saw these beautiful poems, and they were drawn into this love that people were showing to Jesus in the Eucharist, and they wanted to become Catholic. They want to join in that. And even if they don't become Catholic, maybe they want to go visit a Catholic church and be in Eucharistic Adoration, because they can do that. All are welcome. And so those were the two thoughts that I had that sparked Euchoetry.com. Now, I also thought of another idea that I'm really excited about, is that once I write enough poems to form a book, I would make it into a book. And it'd probably be several volumes. The first volume is most likely going to hopefully come out this year. And I've written, hopefully at the time of this recording, I've now written over 100 poems. And so the first book would be just called Euchoetry, and maybe a subtitle there too, Poems in the Presence, something like that. And the book would be my first 100 poems that I wrote in the presence of God. But then subsequent books would be those other poems that other people have written. So on the website, if you do submit a poem, you would also agree that it could be republished. Obviously, if you're the author of the poem, you would get credit for that poem. But how cool would it be if people could take into Eucharistic Adoration, if they just wanted some more inspiration or to be to read a little something while they're in the silent presence of Christ? What if they, read these poems and got extra inspired, extra built up in their faith, hope, and love to adore Jesus in the Eucharist, to worship him and love him? And maybe they become inspired to write a poem and submit it to Euchoetry.com. So all that to say is I'm very, very excited to launch Euchoetry.com. It's my new creative project for the year. I'm hoping it lasts the rest of my life, really, because I would love to see you all submit poems and keep it coming, keep it flowing. Obviously, if you do submit a poem, I would review it to make sure that there's no heretical things in it, and also that it's a good poem, Not that I'm the best poet myself or that I'm a good judge of poetry, but I just want to make sure that it's up to par. And maybe eventually, if this grows, we'll have like a committee that are actually professional poets to review things or something. But anyway, spread the word. Please spread the word. Post on Facebook about it. Check out the website, euchoetry.com, and consider submitting a poem. But even if you don't submit a poem, subscribe. If you subscribe on the website, then you will get the latest poem that's released. My goal at first is just to release one poem a week. Obviously, if I get an influx of poems from you all, then it might be more frequent. But if you subscribe to the email list, you will get notified of every time there's a new poem. And that's the whole point of the subscription, is to just notify you of that. So I'm really excited because, when we talk about evangelism, oftentimes in our modern times, we talk about leading with beauty. And I think poetry is a beautiful form of writing that really allows the transcendent reality of God to break into our reality. It catches us up into the heavens, and it has that power to do that. And so I think writing poems, once again, handwritten poems in the presence of God, that's a beautiful thing. I personally take this journal with me. If you're on YouTube, you can see my little notebook into Eucharistic Adoration. When I feel inspired, I'll write a poem down. And so I thought it would be fun during this inaugural launch video of Euchoetry.com to share with you a couple poems that I wrote. I'll share with you my very first poem that I wrote. And I will probably be reading these in a British accent because I think it's epic and fun and cool. So bear with me as I read some poems and to whet your appetite. And hopefully, eventually, all these poems will be on Euchoetry.com. And once again, please check it out. The first poem I wrote in our Lord's presence in the Eucharist, I titled it Silent Presence. And it goes something like this. O Lord, your silent presence beckons all to kneel before your throne. When I see your face in the host, my heart begins to groan. No mere symbol, not even just a sign, the Eucharist I see is altogether divine. You, O my Jesus, encircled by gold, ignite my faith to be fire-tried and bold. Veil torn, intimacy with God is here, under the veiled appearance of my Saviour dear. Earth cannot fathom so great a mystery that you, O God, would share in our humanity. You are the bread broken for us. You are our life, the sweetness that we trust. Alas, for those I know who miss your hidden presence below, I ask, I beg, that you open their eyes, that they may see through the devil's lies. May they miss you no longer as they come into your church, built upon the rock of Peter and spread throughout the earth. O sublime reality, heaven and earth are touching. At every mass you come to us, arms outstretching. Here in adoration, the stillness of that moment, when the priest holds up the host and grace comes in a torrent. Sheer grace you give, sheer grace is ours. When faith awakens to see you as you are, hope is kindled as your resurrection shines. Here in the Eucharist, all that is yours becomes mine. Love is quickened in the depths of my heart, looking upon love, O Jesus, the love that thou art. That was my first poem that I wrote in the presence of the Lord in the Eucharist. I want to read 3 more poems to you all, and I'm not going to break my British accent while I do, or else it might be broken forever. So I'm going to keep going. This is a poem I wrote on December 3rd, 2019. It's called Throne and Altar. Hungry for the bread of life, thirsty for the blood of Christ, panting for his presence, eager for God's essence, stripped of all scrupulosity, cleansed from all anxiety, heart beats stilled, breaths gently blowing, eyes fixed on Jesus, the beloved one is coming, pleasing aromas surround, the 24 elders fall down, angels sing his praise, the dead now living set their gaze, saints robed in splendor all around, the cherubim throne causes joy to abound. The King is seated above the heavens. Now this Lamb comes as our leaven. We glimpse his glory, mere so dimly lit, radiating light through the church he carefully knit. Bride yearning for her groom, groom preparing a precious room. In that room an altar is built. The altar takes away her guilt. On this altar's body he will give, blood poured out, the bride can now live. Flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone, the bridegroom makes the bride his own. Divine romance, O great mystery, that we now partake of Christ's divinity. Very well. 2 more poems for you all, and then I will cut this off. The next poem was written the next day on December 4th, 2019. It is called Gazing Through the Veil, and I actually think after reading some of these poems, this might be one of my favorites. Gazing Through the Veil. Here we go. Light licks the air as the flame of the candles flicker and flare. Monstrance erect, golden beams ablaze, with the fire of divine love drawing all to gaze. Eucharist enclosed by sparkling gems, Jesus looks at me and I look at him. Veiled glory in my midst, eyes of faith get a glimpse. Humility himself in lowliness clad, requiring humility for all to be glad. Sweet aromas from incense burning, mysterious presence all-consuming. Gaze transfixed upon my Lord, light from light, the veil is torn. And just to let you know, typically the Eucharist is, when it's exposed, it's held in something called a monstrance, which is usually this golden thing that is like a golden, that has a clear circle in the middle that holds the Eucharist for you to see. And in that particular setting, that monstrance had like these gems around it. So that's what I was talking about with the monstrance and the gems. And of course, there was candlelight. So those candles were flickering in the chapel that I was in there. Okay, last poem for the day. And maybe I'll do a series on Euchoetry and reveal some more poems if you like this. So this one is got a really cool title called Mingling with Divinity. And you have heard it said that a man and a woman, when they get married and engage in their sexual relationship, the two become one flesh, right? And it's called this mingling of souls. So their bodies and their souls mingle. But that mingling of souls that happens in the sexual encounter between man and woman in marriage is a sign pointing to a further encounter, an intimate encounter that we are to have with God in the resurrection of the dead. Not a sexual encounter, but something that which transcends sex and points that sex is pointing towards, an intimate exchange of persons. Well, that intimate exchange of persons in the future is actually made present through the Eucharist, the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. This is why St. Paul says that this mystery is profound. And I mean a reference to Christ and the church. After he just quotes the two becoming one flesh, he says that is actually pointing to Christ's own union with the church. That one flesh union between Christ and the church happens in the Eucharist. He gives us his flesh and blood, and we give our flesh and blood to him. We have this exchange of persons, this gift of love. And so this mingling of souls because Christ is no mere human, but he's truly God and truly man. It's actually mingling with divinity, body, blood, soul, and divinity. This is a profound revelation, and that is what this last poem is about. So this one's called Mingling with Divinity. I wrote it on December 11th, 2019. Mingling with Divinity. Christ's body and blood flowing through my veins, life enveloped by the God who reigns, Christ's soul and divinity mingling with me, this union of love sets me free. Freed from all the shackles of shame and sin, righteousness gladdens the souls of just men. Joy is ringing as angel choirs are singing, longing to look at this grace bestowed. The angels rejoice as God's plan unfolds. Hidden before all ages began, divine wisdom decreed to give himself to man. Though our folly made us flee and tear, the love of Christ compels us near. Here he is for all to see, the lowly one, as fruit from the tree. Tree of life, O cross of Christ, bearing the fruit of bread divine, and blood under the guise of wine. Partaking of this heavenly feast, divine life grows as bread from yeast. Body and blood for all is offered. God and man are permanently partnered. Awestruck we bow before this mystery, the church now called to life in Holy Trinity. Alrighty, well, might as well just stick with the British accent in our final moments together, because it's kind of fun, don't you think? So those are some poems that will be posted or have maybe already been posted on Euchoetry.com. So check it out, Euchoetry.com, EUCHOETRY.com, Euchoetry.com. And you can subscribe and get updated on the latest poems, and you yourself can contribute. The requirements are this. You have to handwrite the poem in the presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist exposed in the monstrance. So that type of Eucharistic adoration, you write the poem while you're in the presence of God. That is the main thing. Write the poem while you're in the presence of God. And then, of course, you type it up in an email or whatever. Actually, there's going to be a place on the website to submit the poem. So you put it in there, and then I'll review it, maybe with a committee, probably not at first. And then maybe make some little changes here and there if we need to, but post that poem right away if we can, and share it with the world, and share it with your friends and family. And so let us spread the word about Euchoetry.com so that people that feel artistically inclined, or maybe even not, like I never viewed myself as a poet, really. And so, but if you're in the presence of the Creator, sometimes your creativity awakens. So, and regardless of whether or not you want to write poems, get in the presence of God. Adore Jesus Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. That is your life. That is the source and summit of your faith, of your life. So go adore Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. Emmanuel, God with us. When Jesus ascended, he didn't just leave. Rather, his presence, his incarnational presence, became transcendent. It became available in every tabernacle of the world in the Catholic Church. So, go to the Eucharist, go to this Eucharistic adoration at a Catholic church near you, adore Jesus, and if the Holy Spirit inspires you to write a poem about the Eucharist in the presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, then you can go to Euchoetry.com. So please check it out, everyone. Euchoetry.com. God bless. Happy New Year 2021. Here we come.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.